Hello and welcome to Stitches and Slapdashery, Slowvember, day 16. Bake a dessert with apples. This is perfect because if you were watching about a week ago, you'll know that I went to a local fruit stand and they were inviting people to come and get free apples because there were so many. They were all windfalls, so I have 2 crisper drawers full of apples and I definitely need to use them up. So that's what I'll do. As you can see, that's a lot of apples. I actually had 2 crisper drawers absolutely full of free apples from the fruit stand last week. I decided to only use the Golden Delicious because some of the red ones have been a bit sour. I wish I could peel apples this fast in real life. So I used enough apples that by the time I had finished peeling and cutting, I only had a single layer of apples left in that crisper drawer. I don't think I enjoy peeling apples. It's definitely not one of my favorite things to do. So I added some lemon juice into my pan because I like the tang, and also it stops them browning, the apples from browning too much. So then I roughly chopped them, threw them into the pan and turned the heat on, and I added a little bit of coconut sugar. That wasn't in the recipe. It was actually sweetened with dates, but I like coconut sugar, what can I say? So while they simmered, I did the topping. So the maple syrup and the peanut butter and the oats are for the crumbly topping of this pie. They did suggest cashew butter or almond butter in the recipe, but I didn't have either. And then I'm throwing in some oats there and a little bit of flour. Put that aside for later. And then for the base, I was putting in soaked dates and quite a lot of oats, no flour in the base at all. This would be really easy to make gluten-free. And then there was some soy milk, and I think that was pretty much it. My food processor didn't do a great job on getting those dates all chopped up, but it was good enough. So then you just tip it all into the dish. I probably should have put some parchment in the dish because when you're doing oil-free cooking, yeah, it tends to stick. It was fine. So I pushed it all out. I ended up wetting my hands and just pushing it more into the corners after the spatula was done. And then I tipped in my hot apples, which weren't completely broken down. Golden Delicious aren't the best ones to cook with. I usually like to use Macintosh. And of course, if I was in the UK, I'd use Bramleys, but we can't get those over here. They don't grow over here. Very sad. I piled them up, kept on going till they were almost all gone. And then I put my little crumbly topping on the top. And then because I wondered if it might be a bit dry, I put a few spoonfuls of the liquid from the apple pan on top as well. Didn't want to use too much because I didn't want the base to be soggy, but I didn't want it to be like you can't get your teeth through it. And then I put it in the oven for 45 minutes at 375. I made some custard and yeah, it tasted all right. It's about 6 degrees. It's a little damp, but very calm. And I have a lot of pigeons in my walnut tree. I'm happy that I finished the stitching of my slow stitched Christmas scroll now. So I'll just give you a close-up of what I've done. I've added some stars and X's and trees and flowers and snowflakes. some blanket stitch. So my original plan was going to be to, let's just grab a wider view. Okay. My original plan was to cut a backing and then do a separate binding, like a quilt binding. But then I changed my mind because now I can just do it all by hand. I don't have to do any machine stitching on here. And I think this will be a less bulky option. So what I did was, this is 2 inches wide by 21 3/4. And I added 5/8 of an inch all around, so I could just put this on the back like so and fold it to the front and then hand stitch it down. So I found this rather beautiful dark red tonal in the stash and a lovely dark red thread, and I'm going to start pinning now. Hope I've allowed myself enough fabric. I do have enough to cut myself another piece if this turns out to be too small. But I added 1/4 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, and then another 1/8 for the thickness of the batting. It's looking a little bit close, isn't it? If I fold and fold, maybe it'll be okay. But let's just make sure I have it balanced out at each end. Looking a little wider there, just point here, but anyway. Okay. Just move that down. I'll start right in the middle here. And I'm just going to go fold and fold. And just like when you finish off the edges of a raw edged quilt, it suddenly looks so much nicer. I'll just pause you while I finish pinning. So when I first started pinning, I realized I'd put a bit too much fabric on one side compared to the other. It's still looking a little puffy in the middle, but hopefully it will smooth out once I've stitched it, and also when it's rolled around its little spool. I still haven't figured out what I'm doing with these edges and whether I'm trying to do a mitre or not. I'll have to tidy it up when I actually get to the sewing part probably, but let's throw some pins in there before it gets away from me. There. Ouch. Pins, honestly. Why do they have to be sharp? There. Now I can get started on the sewing part. I moved to a smaller needle finer needle and a regular sewing thread. Of course, it's all going to catch like mad on the pins, but at least as I go around, there will be fewer of them to get annoying. As I'm planning to give this as a gift, I've been trying to remember to be a little bit more careful with my stitching. If this was just for me, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Yep, this is going to catch on a pin every single stitch, isn't it? Or maybe two of them. Oh boy. I've been getting emails from this person. Oh, I'm going to have to check what her name is. But I think her website is Gamer Babe or something. And one of my online friends from the Ravelry group that I am spending a lot of time in sent me a link to the newsletter that this person is sending out this month. And the focus of it is to get more movement into your life and remember to do things like hydrate and stretch. I just realised my microphone's practically hitting the table. Hold on a minute. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Hopefully you can hear me better now. So just now, after I had finished with the embroidery thread and before I started on this part, I sat back in my chair and I arched my back the other way because I had been leaning over my stitching and starting to get uncomfortable in the back and the shoulders. And it was so nice to do. Much as it's wonderful to do all this crafting, we do have to look after our bodies because bodies are going to be around for our whole lives, and the more flexible and pain-free they are, the better, right? We really shouldn't take good health for granted. You were with me in the last year. You'd know that my husband, who I call Mr. Stitches on here, who appeared to be perfectly healthy, in fact, was the most self-disciplined person I knew when it came to exercise and eating, and was definitely the perfect weight for his height and everything. He got throat cancer, and it was quite the shock. It makes you realise that however well you look after yourself, things can happen. It might be an infection, or it might be a genetic thing. But thankfully, he was told by the oncologist that because he was otherwise healthy and didn't have any other health issues, that he was dealing with the cancer treatment way better than some people have, thankfully. He still has lasting issues from that treatment, and probably always will. But yeah, our parents and grandparents certainly pass on some crappy stuff to us sometimes, don't they? My sister has I can never say that word, glaucoma, which my mother and grandmother had. I had otosclerosis, which is when the inside of your ear, the bones inside your ear start to calcify and fuse together. So I've had surgery to fix my hearing, otherwise I'd be stone deaf by now. And so on and so on. So instead of sew on, we're going to sew on, SEW, because it gives us something to focus on and relax with. My scroll is finished. Woohoo! It's all beautifully covered up on the back, so you can't see all the messy stitching and the knots on the back. And I didn't bother trying to mitre the corners because I think it would have just been too fiddly and I'd have got really, really annoyed with it. So it's done. It's always fun putting something special on this end of it where it's going to show most when I roll it onto the spool. So let's do the final reveal, shall we? The final ta-da. I even thought about putting my Stitches and Slapdashery label on the back, but I don't think I'm going to. There. So my little gnomes are showing right there on the front. And I'm using one of my old pins, my old plastic-headed pins, because my glass ones are for sewing. Just want to push this through so I'm not damaging anything, though. Doesn't want to go in. Ah, there we are. Finished! I'm so excited. A finished object. With a bit of bling from the gold buttons. Wonderful. So that's it for day 16. The apple pie wasn't bad. Mr. Stitches and I are avoiding refined oils as much as possible at the moment, and so we are defaulting to recipes that don't have any added oil or butter. And I wasn't sure how that pie crust was going to turn out, considering it was just oats, dates, and soy milk. But it actually was quite good. And it did not cement itself to the dish like I thought it would. So all is well. I also made custard because the pie itself was a little bit dry. So I made custard, and you'll have seen in the clip that it was quite a dark yellow because I sweetened it with coconut sugar. So that makes it look a little bit darker coloured than you might expect. It was really good though, and it thickened up beautifully. In fact, it thickened up maybe a little too well because it was pretty gloopy when it cooled off. Anyway, it tasted fine. So yeah, I'm really happy that I have finished this little scroll. And it's good timing because the person I want to give it to, I don't think she watches my vlog. The person I want to give it to is having foot surgery this week. And I think I might have to drop this round to her while she is recuperating, just to cheer her up a bit, because she's going to be laid up for quite some time, I think, which is really going to cramp her style. So really exciting news. I looked at my numbers this morning, my stats, and I was at 1,001. So thank you to those who have just pushed me over the edge into the 4-digit numbers. That's so exciting. And I'm very grateful. So that's it for today. And I think I might have already said that. Thanks for being here once again. And I'll see you again tomorrow with something else.